I have just spent about 2.5 weeks in Tanzania now, and one of the things that has really struck me immediately is how distinctive Tanzania's urban landscape is. I haven't really traveled much across the country, having been here obviously for only 2.5 weeks. But last week, most of this week, I was in Dodoma, and a beautiful place. I went to the University of Dodoma. It's a really expansive place, 30,000 students, I was told. And then I went to a place at the university where you can look at the whole outlay of the city of Dodoma. Really impressive. I'm going to speak a little bit more about Dodoma today. But I just want to begin. So driving into Dodoma, coming out of Morogoro, right? That beautiful road? So this is what you see, right? And what you see out on the horizon, if you just look beyond the cars, what do you see? You see buildings, a whole bunch of, hundreds, if not thousands, of freshly constructed new buildings, right? And so I was driving with this team, and one of them said, wait a minute, how come we don't see any high-rise buildings there? Everything is ground floor. Why do you think there are no high-rise buildings? Any guess? Anybody? Why are there no high-rise buildings in that landscape? Anybody guess? Yes, sir.
I think because it has been commissioned recently as a capital city, and it's very expansive in terms of land.
It's expansive in terms of land. I think that's one of the possible reasons why we don't have high-rise, buildings there. Maybe the land is not very expensive. Maybe it's got something to do with construction costs. I don't know, perhaps. But that's beautiful, what we saw there. I'm going to show you one other picture that I took. And the picture is of this. This is known as Magufuli City. This is known as Magufuli City. It's a brand new city that's been planned, developed, and designed by the government of Tanzania in the process of moving away from Dar es Salaam to Dodoma. And what you see there in this city, again, a really expansive, place. Ministries, departments, and agencies are systematically, constructing, offices, brand new, beautiful offices, and moving into the premises. And so I took this picture out of one of the buildings that houses the Ministry of Water. Okay? We went there for a meeting with the Ministry of Water. And so when we went into the meeting, I told the lady we were meeting with, you have really beautiful offices. And she said, yeah, offices are beautiful, but we don't have a good restaurant here, okay? Back in downtown Dodoma, we had restaurants. I said, wait a minute, but you have a cafeteria right there. She said, yes, we have a cafeteria, but they don't serve all the vegetables that I'd like to eat. So we got a problem here. We've got a beautiful offices, but we don't have vegetables. What do? Urban planners, how do we fix this problem? It's a real problem, is it not? How do people eat the vegetables that they like? Right? Now, and so another really captivating feature of Tanzania's urban landscape, and not just Tanzania, many countries, including Kenya, where I come from, is the dala-dalas, all right? The borders. And guess what? The bajaj, we have the famous bajaj. They are everywhere, and they are really convenient. We use them. I use them very conveniently, when I need to. And so this got me wondering about, something, all right? Because there are new dala-dalas coming all the time. And I guess there are old dala-dalas, okay? All right? And old borders. What happens to the bajaj that get old and out of use? What happens to them? When I watch movies out of Hollywood, I see these images of places where they dump old used cars, okay? And usually a lot of shooting happens in these places, right? Okay? You remember those movies? A lot of shooting happens in these places. And so looking at these Bajaj, I was wondering to myself, what happens to the old Bajaj? Okay? Is there a graveyard, a dump yard somewhere for the Bajaj? Do they get recycled? Are they repurposed? Is there some hidden graveyard where they are stored? And so, listen, we need to begin to think about how we are going to deal with old, dilapidated, out of use Bajajes as we think about urban planning and urban growth. Okay? In the same way that we deal with solid waste management out of our homes, we need to think about what we do with the old Bajajs and old boda bodas and old daladalas, when they get old. Now, this may sound like a light question, but the question of Bajaj points to something really, really important. Cities and urban areas produce assets, hospitals, kiosks, good balance sheets, schools, and the like, okay, as all of you, are familiar. So cities produce assets. Is that right? But guess what? Cities also produce liabilities, a lot of them. They produce noise, dust, pollution, congestion, crime, disease, and all this. Okay? So cities produce both assets and liabilities. Is that right? And so my own understanding of urban governance is really how we manage both urban assets and urban liabilities. That's my understanding. And I hope to share with you a little bit more about this understanding. Of course, this is a question of perspective. We have engineers here, we have planners, and each of them, we have medical folks, and each of them will have different perspective about what urban governance is. The way I come from, my perspective is urban governance is about how we manage the assets, some of which we just talked about, and the liabilities. And so I really like when we come together in a place like this, because then from wherever we come and the fields we represent and the professions, then we share our perspectives, and hopefully we get to agree and we try to achieve a consensus about how then should we combine all our perspectives in terms of improving urban governance. Is that correct? Are we still together? All right. Now, in Africa and many other places, discussions about urbanization tend to revolve sometimes disproportionately on one city or two cities. Maybe one big city, perhaps the capital city, and a few other cities, usually the capital, all right? Now, quite often, the focus of urban planning, urban governance, and urban management then gets oriented unintentionally towards that single city. Am I right? Right? So quite often when we talk about urbanization in Kenya, what comes to your mind? Nairobi, okay? You talk about urbanization in Tanzania, what comes to your mind is not Fumba town, it's Dar es Salaam, maybe Dodoma, okay? So quite unintentionally discussions revolve around that. And why is that the case? This is the case because the city, particularly the capital ones, they represent the center of power. This is the seat of government. This is the commercial hub where you have all the headquarters of the commercial banks, manufacturing enterprises, transport companies, supermarket chains, and retail shops. All are in the same place. It's a center of power. Is it right? And many times too, such urban areas are also the cultural or historical or traditional nerve center of the country, because it has a lot of significance. I think there's somebody here from Senegal, maybe people. Think of Dakar. Dakar is historical, cultural melting point, rich place representing history. Think of Cairo, it's the same thing. Think of Zanzibar, it's the same thing, Bagamoyo and these places, all right? So because they represent all of these functions, they are the centers of power. And probably this idea of power, it acts like a magnet and it attracts people from the rural areas. Maybe, I think so. Maybe this is one of the reasons why we have a lot of rural-urban migration, especially the youth, young people. They want to be where the power is. Everybody wants to be around power, especially young people. I want to go back to the story of Dodoma, Tanzania's relatively new capital, deliberately moved from Dar es Salaam. Now actually this is not unique. Many other countries have done this. I have just made some really good friends out here from India. And in India, they moved out of old Delhi, and now we have the new Delhi. Is that correct? My Indian friends, we just spoke a little while ago. Nigeria, anybody from Nigeria? Okay, we got somebody from Nigeria. There's a move from Lagos to Abuja. You resonate with this? Okay. Anybody from South Africa here? South Africa is a really interesting one because in South Africa, anybody from South? No, she is not South African. She is Zimbabwean. She is Zimbabwean. I met her and I know her. All right. Excellent. Okay. So when I first went to South Africa, I saw this unique split in functions. You have Cape Town as the legislative capital. So Parliament is all the way down in Cape Town. And then you have Pretoria as the seat of government. And then the judicial function is split across several towns with Bloemfontein, and Johannesburg. Okay, so that's very interesting. So what Tanzania has done with Dodoma is not unique to Tanzania. Several other countries, and even in the US, where I went to school, I went to Missouri, and for a long time I thought Kansas City was the capital. And I learned later that Jefferson City, way up north, I think, is actually the capital. All right? So this split and separation, of the functions. What about Kenya? Kenya has not done this, quite yet, and I've always thought that that is telling, because you see in Kenya, the political and economic power are tightly fused together. And so why is this important? Because business elites, business enterprises benefit from the concentration, the agglomeration within Nairobi, okay? And because they benefit, they draw benefits out of this, benefits such as high rent because of land values, benefits, such as networking. They draw benefits, such as influence, proximity to power. Why is this relevant? Because these business elites then resist change. They resist change. I'm going to give you two examples of changes that these business elites who are drawing the benefits of power have consistently resisted. Now, property taxation all over the world is based on the improved site value of the land. In Kenya, property tax is based on the unimproved site value of the land. So if we have two pieces of land, one has the structure and the other one has goats herding, both properties pay the same tax. Not only that, those property taxes, those land values have not been updated for 30 or 40 years, decades. So we are using unimproved site value based on outdated valuation rules. And the business interests have for years refused change to improve that structure. The impact of this, low revenue. We're going to come back to the issue of the poor revenue performance. Let me give you another example of the sorts of changes, even fairly simple changes like moving the bus park to a less congested part of the city. In Nairobi, there's going to be a war about it, street fights and police and riot police. We have this big second-hand clothes market in Nairobi. It's called Gikomba. and the county government of Nairobi has been trying to move it a few meters away from the river. And there's been such a lot of resistance. And so this interest, where the capital sits, is never just an administrative location. It also reflects who holds the power and who benefits from the power. And this is my challenge, Curtis, to the AUL. My challenge is that as we do all the studies that we were doing, I would challenge you to invest more research time in the political economics underlying cities, towns, and urban areas. I feel like not enough has been done about this. It's okay to do the structural, operational things, but let's also try to understand the political economy dynamics. Who owns the power? Who benefits from this? Right? Who stands to lose and to gain if we implement these urban changes? And this could very well lead to a better understanding of urban governance. When I was invited for this talk, I was requested by Curtis to speak a lot out of my own experience, and that's what I'm going to try to do. And so rather than give an abstract theory, my approach is to draw from my own lived experience across different roles, across different countries, and across different systems. And so you can think of this as a journey or a map from where these lessons come from and why they might be relevant to all of us. So I grew up in a small town in the western parts of Kenya. This town is called Mumias. Now Mumias was a small town built around a sugar factory, Mumias Sugar Company. Okay? And back then in its prime, Mumias Sugar Company was vibrant. It had busy markets. The streets were lit. This is back then in the early 80s. Okay, that tells you how old I am. Okay, thriving private sector. In fact, Mumias was also up there in terms of HIV infections. You know what I'm talking about? A vibrant place, okay? Vibrant place, okay? So the entire town revolved around this economic engine, sugarcane production and the factory. And one interesting thing is that the sugar factory even overshadowed the local authority in terms of provision of services, okay? The sugar company provided street lights, they built roads, okay? Whenever there was no water, they would bring trucks and bowsers and supply everybody with water. I remember trucks, coming home. Let me tell you a story. One night, when my father's Volkswagen Beetle Blue registration number KLR 647. I remember it. So one night when my father's VW Beetle blew up in flames, I suspect it was a case of arson, okay? The fire trucks from the sugar company came there long before the fire trucks from the local authority got there. This just tells you how efficient and the extent to which a private company, a business enterprise operating in the town had overtaken and taken over the roles of the local authority. And then something happened. Trade liberalization hit. Sugar imports began to come into the country. Now it so happens that it is way cheaper to produce sugar in Sudan or other countries than in Kenya. Sugar production in Kenya, the costs are extremely high, okay? And so that's what happened. And so you can guess what happened to the sugar factory. It collapsed. The picture at the top is the sugar company back in those days, vibrant. A few months ago, I went back to Mumias. I was passing through and I could hardly recognize Mumias. The picture at the bottom is what I saw, right? All right, so what's the story here? So the business enterprise collapsed, and with it, urban growth stalled. It's a stark reminder that when the economic engine fails, then the urban system collapses with it. And so urban governance and economic governance are intertwined like this, joined at the hip. I'm going to return to this subject later of economics and public finance management when I'll be talking about my current experience. But I think that the lesson that we need to learn now is that we need all disciplines on board and on deck when we are considering urban growth, urban governance, urban management, and in particular, urban financing. And so, in conversations about urbanization, one of my favorite topics is really how towns and cities grow and how they evolve. And if you look at many African cities, Zanzibar, Mombasa, Dar es Salaam, they didn't start with master plans. These places, in a sense, grew organically, maybe as trading hubs, maybe as cultural places, and they grew over decades, sometimes over centuries. And so the planning and governance came later, often trying to catch up with the growth of the urban areas. And so the consideration here is whether our urban policies are too slow for the evolving urban dynamics. And this is something that we will come back to later. So urban planning, urban governance, urban financing need to anticipate future changes, not follow those changes, all right? Because quite often we are responding to what is happening rather than anticipating. What I see here is really positive because this is anticipating what is likely to happen, later. And so today, when we talk about urban governance, what we may be trying to do is to superimpose order onto systems that are organically evolving by themselves. And it's not always easy, despite our best efforts. Problems do occur, like congestion, like waste management. We have poor drainage, informal transport, and underinvestment in the urban areas. These are some of the problems. I don't entirely look at these as problems. I look at these as, potential metrics, providing a framework that we could then use to understand these urban areas. And just to give you a couple of examples, congestion, in my mind, it tells me about population dynamics, demographic dynamics, okay? Where is the population? What kind of people are coming into the city? When do they come? How do they come? Can they afford it? Investment reflects to me economic progression, all right? And this has got implications for incomes, for profits, for revenues, and for efficiency. And so the truth is that we really know the problems we are dealing with. Often, we even know the solutions that we should apply to those problems. The real constraints are, what are the real constraints? Financing and political will. If we could deal with those two, then I think that we would be, really good. Now, when I worked at the World Bank up until 2015 for about 6 or 7 years, I spent a lot of time working on Kenya's devolution or fiscal decentralization. We had a program called the Kenya Accountable Devolution Program. Subsequently, we had the Fiscal Decentralization Knowledge Program, of which I was a part. And on your left, you see one of the publications that we did. Of course, it's a bit dated now. This was done in 2011, 2012. It's still available on the internet. It's got a really neat chapter on urban management and urban financing. And if you have time, then you can look at that. I was requested to select the title for this document, and I said, Devolution Without Disruption. It's a bit of a misnomer because the scale of devolution that Kenya was getting into could certainly not have happened without a disruption. Nonetheless, let me tell you something that might be important for us to understand urbanization in Kenya based on the devolution that took place. So one of the drastic reforms was that more than 175 existing local authorities, and that's the bar in red on your slide. You see that? 175 local authorities alongside provinces, districts, and other deconcentrated units were systematically combined into 47 counties. So everything that you see up above in blue, the provinces were collapsed, the local authorities were collapsed, the district systems were collapsed, and the deconcentrated systems were also collapsed. And out of this, we created 47 brand new county governments. This was a massive institutional overhaul. And these 47 county governments were then given significant new funding as well as major responsibilities. Those responsibilities included urban governance and service delivery and revenue collection. So as it were, the county governments inherited the personnel from the local authorities and districts. The county governments inherited systems. We had something called the Local Authority Information Management System. It was called LIFORMS. County governments inherited that. But then the county governments also inherited the large debt that local authorities preceding them had accumulated. And up till now, almost 15 years later, we are still dealing with those debt. It's not been addressed. But then the newly established county governments did not have all of the capacity and are still struggling to develop the capacity to manage the functions and sometimes the funding that follow those functions, including functions and funding related to management of urban areas. What's the lesson? Structural reform without capacity is a recipe for chaos. Let's talk about something else. Here's something that's really interesting. I have just talked about Kenya's defunct local authorities. Now, something really interesting is that when the Constitution was being written, different sectors were jostling and angling to see what their placement would be in the new Constitution. So the education sector was jostling. In fact, education sector said, we don't want to be devolved, we want to remain national. And ultimately, a huge chunk of education has remained a national government function. The health sector was not so organized, and so ultimately health was decentralized almost entirely, and we are still dealing with the consequences of this. When all of this was happening, nobody stood out. When local authorities were being abolished, nobody stood out to defend the local authorities. Can you guess why? Because local authorities by that time had had such a bad record with service delivery, urban governance, urban management, and in particular urban finance. And so Kenya has got only two levels of government constitutionally. We have a national level and a county government level. We don't have a third service delivery level, towns, cities, and municipalities, as would be the case in many other places. Now, there's also a deeper problem here, because Kenya is only 30% urban. That means that the majority of counties are rural in character. It also means that the majority of legislators who get elected into parliament to make decisions about funding, they have come from rural constituencies. And so their incentive is to distribute as much of the revenue as possible to the rural areas. Okay? What's the danger with this? That majority of this revenue is extracted from the urban areas. And so what's happening is slow killing of the urban areas. On your right-hand side, I'm going to show you a formula, a sample formula that is used to distribute revenue to the county government. And what you see there are the weights for the variables in that formula. You have a basic equal share that has a weight of 18%. You have population that has a weight of 45%, poverty 14%, land area, roads, which is used as a proxy for infrastructure development, and then you have fiscal effort. So you don't have a dedicated variable in the formula that simulates the costs of urban governance and urban management. So Nairobi, for example, gets money only on account of its population, but not out of the fact that it deals with congestion, a problem which Marsabit County does not deal with. Just a few more minutes before I conclude. I talked about the time that I spent at the World Bank, and so to respond to the emerging urban crisis in Kenya, what the World Bank did is to design a program known as the Kenya Urban Support Program, and the goal of the program was to rebuild the urban institutions that devolution had unintentionally weakened. And what this program does, it uses performance-based grants. The World Bank calls it the P4R, the Program for Results. It uses this arrangement to reward counties that meet governance standards. And so far, some achievements have been made. 59 municipalities have been re-established. Functioning boards are being set up in a number of these towns and cities. And also, there is stronger engagement with the citizens. Incidentally, all of these achievements should have been realized through the existing legal framework, which is known as the Urban Areas and Cities Act. The county governments did not do these things. Why? Because there was no incentive for them to do these things. But then while we celebrate these achievements, I think we need to be careful about sustainability. What happens when the World Bank's Kenya Urban Support Program is closed? And that incentive to county governments is no longer there. So there's a potential danger. And so the takeaway with this is that good laws are necessary, but they are not sufficient for well-governed urban areas. Implementation needs funding, it needs incentives, and above all, it needs accountability. It's my second last slide that I'm going to take you through. So what happens when urban governance is under pressure? What happens when a capital city like Nairobi begins to struggle? As many of the cities we come from have struggled, are struggling, or will struggle at some point in time. And so Nairobi is a powerful example of urban stress. High population densities, thousands of tons of waste being generated on a daily basis. So where I live in Nairobi, we use a private garbage collection. We don't rely on the one that comes from the Nairobi City County government. Massive traffic costs, weak revenue base. Okay, so the government of Kenya has tried two approaches. The first approach was a more or less centralized intervention. They established the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, and these delivered quick results, but then governance structures were weak. And then when the current administration came into place, they are beginning to implement, beginning this year, they are implementing a new cooperation agreement that is aimed to share responsibility. But then it also raises similar concerns as the one with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service. And so the question here becomes, who governs, who pays, and who is accountable for the management of the urban areas? And so finally, now in Tanzania, like my introduction indicated, I lead the Good Financial Governance Program, and what it's trying to do is to improve revenue collection across government entities. It's trying to reduce high collection costs of the revenue, to improve expenditure control, and also to build transparency in the urban areas. And this is important because without fixing these elements, then the urban areas, the cities and towns cannot just function efficiently. I just want to end with this particular slide, and this is what I'd like to say. that urban governance, in my view, is only as strong as its financial systems. And secondly, if a city cannot collect revenue, it means that it cannot deliver the services that it is obligated to provide to its residents. If a city cannot manage its expenditures, then, as we have seen with the case of Nairobi's defunct local authorities, then that city, cannot be accountable. It loses trust if it can't manage the expenditures. And without trust, then we cannot push reforms. I gave you examples of business interests in Nairobi resisting change. Part of the reason is that they don't trust the urban governance. And so finance is not a back office function. Finance is at the core of urban governance and urban management. It is the engine of urban governance, in my view. And I think that for all of you, current practitioners and future practitioners, the challenge then is for you to understand both the technical elements of urban governance as well as the public financial management elements of urban governance and management. And I'm glad that in the course outlines that I have seen, there are important elements about financing, about revenue, about costs, and about expenditures. And the reason for this is that the future of Africa will be shaped by cities. Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I look forward to any questions you might have. Thank you.
So thank you very much for welcoming me here. And without any further ado, because unfortunately I have very limited time to be here with you, I would like to very briefly highlight on what is PDB, why it has been created, what it's doing, experiences, so that in your class you can at least add some spices. By the way, you are on the spice island here, so you can add some spices to the flavor of your classes. The PDB was established about 3 years ago by His Excellency Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, the President of Zanzibar and Chairman of the Revolutionary Council. And its main purpose was to expedite his vision. When he came into power, after experiencing a number of positions in the union government, he realized that Zanzibar has potential to grow faster than it used to. So he established PDB, Presidential Delivery Bureau, stationed in his private office in the State House, and working to make sure that his vision is turned into reality in Zanzibar. Now, what is the PDB mandate? Can I talk while walking? I prefer. Yeah. First of all, it is the role of coordinating. And as I said earlier, accelerate development in infrastructure, knowing that infrastructure is key to any development endeavor. Under this, you'll find that our airports, seaports, roads, and others are all constructed and reconstructed to ensure that there's a smooth movement of people, goods, and services so that the life can be easier. Of course, it has not been easy, but at least we have managed to do something. And while you are in Fumba town, let me tell you that all these roads which you see here, by January next year, we expect them to be 6-lane roads, not the small ones like you see. And that for sure will be realized. We always say, inshallah. Yeah. Now, what are the 4 priority areas of the PDP? And we say priority areas, we don't mean that other areas have no importance to the government. But you know, when a government has a lot of things to do, it has to start somewhere where the impact, the benefits, they're either what we call as low-hanging fruits, or they have externalities that can be trickled down to other areas as well. So the first one is blue economy. Zanzibar is surrounded by sea. By blue economy, we mean maritime, whether it is transportation or issues related to the sea, oil and gas exploration, fisheries, and also tourism-related issues, which are also covered under tourism, which is the key economic contributor to Zanzibar right now. We also have infrastructure, as I mentioned earlier, and social services. And the social services, we deal with education. That's why you find a number of new schools have been constructed. While previously, we used to have ground schools only. Now in every district, there are higher rising schools. While previously, students have to go in batches because the classes were not adequate to accommodate them. Right now, all students just go once, okay? And the social services also have hospitals and health services. In every district, you know that there's a district hospital, state of the art. And the social services, we have clean and safe water. Again, this is an area whereby still there are some bottlenecks. Water is there. We're struggling with the distribution of water to reach all places, but at least we have managed to construct reservoirs that can handle a lot of water and distribute it to the people. Now, what are the priority sources of whatever we do? During the campaign, the president always promises a lot. As PDB, we have to jot down, to write down whatever he promises to the people. Whether he meant it, and you know, when you are in a podium, you can say anything. And when people are cheering you, you can promise them heavens. Ultimately, the responsibility of the Bureau is to find out how we fulfill His Excellency's promises to the people during the campaign, and not only campaign, even during public gathering after being re-elected to the position. There is also a ruling party manifesto, which has a number of promises in them as well. The Zanzibar Development Plan and Zanzibar Development Vision 2025. Previously we had 2020, now we have 2025. 2050. These are the 8 critical functions in infrastructure support. You can't do anything without planning. Planning is key even when you are traveling from one place to the other. Without knowing how you'll get there, Or first of all, where do you want to go? How long you'll stay there, so that you know how big the bag of your clothes should be, how you reach there, how much you need to stay there. So planning is very important. Then, what is the requirement of the clients? And here, when you say clients, we mean the public. The president being a president, he is still accountable to his bosses, who are those who elected, and even those who didn't elect him, but the citizens. Those are the bosses of our president, which means those are our bosses as well. Implementation modality, how it will be done. Then design and estimate, review, proposal, cost review, and reviewing them again. Of course, during this work, you have to deal with investors who come with their money, negotiations, enclosure, stakeholder coordination. Whatever we do, we make sure that the community are engaged in the discussions we have prior to going to the investor to do what he or she would like to do. Also, stakeholder coordination. For instance, you are constructing a road. It's not just a tarmac, but there are those involved in water supply, there are those who are involved in power supply, and so on and so forth. So all stakeholders should be in place in the coordination of the whole. And then accelerated intervention. That means doing things fast, efficiently, and ensuring that they are delivered on time. I would like now to go to the first term achievements. And when I say first term, I mean when the PDB was established, it was during the first 5 years of His Excellency, the President, Dr. Mwinyi. Now, after re-election, it is the second term of another 5 years. So here, we are talking about the first term achievements. What was realized? I believe the slides will be distributed to them all. So let me skip the numbers for the sake of time, but you'll have the slides. And when I visit you again, if you have any question, please, by then you can raise them. But there are a number of urban roads, rural roads, bridges, which we call flyover, strategic roads, which are constructed and continuing being constructed. There's an island called Owegi, not far from here, and I think from Fumba, the other side you can see it. Previously, during higher tide, people couldn't cross from the island to the main Unguja Island. So now, a bridge has been constructed there, which has made life easier. At any time, 24/7, people can go from one point to the other. There are a number of affordable homes constructed, and I believe this is the area of your interest. So by 2027, which is just a few months to come, we expect that there will be 1,065 affordable homes for the people. Total of 3,000 units to be completed in an area called Chumbuni. And the target is to increase planned urban areas from 18 to 40% by 2027, which is just 1 year from now. This is a comprehensive housing policy, which is done by private developers from in and outside the country, Zanzibar Social Security Fund, Zanzibar Housing Corporation, all work together to ensure that the target is reached in time. And by the way, PDB, Presidential Delivery Bureau, is not an implementer. PDB's role is just to ensure that things are done, and if there are any bottlenecks, to find a solution for those who implement, to ensure that they implement the presidential promises as earlier mentioned. When you go to the ports, in addition to the main port, old one at Malindi, we have new port constructed at Mangapwani, which will house a number of activities, including oil and gas delivery for inside consumption, inside the island, as well as for retransportation to other areas. We have Fumba Container Port, Pemba Airport, which will be turned into an international airport, and Abeid Karume International Airport. Key challenges in urban infrastructure delivery, another area of interest to you. You know, when we implement the presidential delivery vision, one of the main challenges we face is the issue of compensation. Because most of the people have constructed their homes very close to the roads. So when you want to expand the roads, you have to ensure that they are adequately compensated in order to ensure that there is peace and harmony in the country. Limited right of way, narrow corridors cannot accommodate all required infrastructure simultaneously. Aging, buried infrastructure, whether it is related to water, electricity, telephones. Lack of as-built drawings, no accurate records exist. Infrastructure level conflicts, whereby the plinth level of existing houses inhibits the construction of proper roads. And this is realized even in Pemba, for those who have visited Pemba. There's a road which should be constructed from Chake Chake, which is the center of Pemba, to Mkoani, the port town. But because of the nature of Pemba being very hilly, most of the people have constructed their houses very close to the main roads. Now, in order to shift them from those places to other places, you have to spend a lot of money, sometimes more than the cost of the roads themselves. Cross-cutting issues include, while constructing roads, we damage water distribution system. Sometimes there's a lack of coordination between ministry, department, and agencies. Peri-urban services backlogs in fast-growing neighborhoods with poor access of road and sanitation, and climate vulnerability. And the climate vulnerability, even now, we experienced during the last 2 or 3 days when there was heavy rain here. In some part of town, water have encroached even up to the bedrooms of the people. Flooding and stormwater drainage deficiencies, because we are very close to the sea. But because there are no proper, well-planned drainage systems that collect water, rainwater to the sea, you find that the water will always look for its own way. And ultimately, you find that they enter into the bedrooms, as I told you. So these challenges are most acute in urban core, especially in the Stone Town and Ngambo. Ngambo is the towns which are close to the Stone Town, and fast-growing peri-urban areas where infrastructure has evolved organically without integrating planning. Whoever constructs a house during this time makes sure that there is a very big wall surrounding his or her house. As a result, you find that water does not have a proper way to pass through to reach where it used to go. That is one of the costs of construction without proper urban planning. Key lessons learned in whatever we do in life, and this is an advice I'm giving it to you. Make sure that you learn something from it. Be your own teacher of teaching you to learn from even the relationship. There is something which you can learn from it. If it is possible, if it is positive, maintain it. If it is not good, find ways to overcome it. So, first of all is early stakeholder engagement. Compensation planning and community consultation must start. It should commence, it should begin before project designs. Because by then you can accommodate the cost into whatever you want to do. There should be a comprehensive utility mapping, integrated corridor planning, where a road reserve must be sized to accommodate all infrastructure systems, not only for the cars to pass, but we are living in the world today whereby wires and other installments are passing under the ground, and also ministerial and other agencies' mechanism. As far as issues of financing are concerned, we are living in a world whereby money is not a problem. The problem is to persuade those who have money to bring it to you. That is the problem. Do you agree with me or not? The money is there, whether it is in the pockets of individuals or corporates, but the money is there. It's how you can seduce for the person to give you the money. Am I right or not? Thank you. So public financing alone cannot meet infrastructure. There are issues like PPP, private-public partnership. There are issues like EPC plus F, which in Zanzibar, let me give you a secret, because people are asking, within this short time, how has Zanzibar managed to have all these funds to do what it is doing? What we do is, normally, what the government can do is doing, but it is not closed its doors for partnership through PPP or through private sector who can come, construct, then finance whatever they are constructing, and the government will be paying back gradually, maybe 8, 10, 15 years, it depends on the negotiation. Real-time monitoring, this is very crucial, because without close monitoring in every hour, every minute, every second, just a slight mistake can cost the country for a very long time. So it's very important to make sure that we monitor whatever is done, whatever is implemented, in real time. And poor design, because peri-urban areas with service backlogs need inclusive upgrading. The needs of urban areas is not the same as those in peri-urban or rural areas. Solar street lighting, for instance, stormwater drainage in public spaces. And we have a World Bank project called Big Z project model, demonstrate effective area based on issues related to upgrading. I'm sure I'm running over others' time, but let me finish with key goals for urban infrastructure in the second administration, which is the current one after the elections. First of all, is the projects identification. Again, stakeholders engagement, design and requirements, scope, cost and risk assignment, and of course, wherever there is risk, you must have mitigative measures to engage the risk expected. I must confess that all these items, they need one-day lecture to do justice to it. But I believe we'll get another chance to talk about them. And today, please bear with me by just showing you what the PDB has been doing, what are the challenges, what we are planning now onwards. Today, this place is very dark if you look at it. Fumba is a model city which is under construction. And for those who are not informed, this is where AFCON will be held. Yeah, the AFCON African, yeah. And you must save some time and visit the constructions which are going on there. There will be state-of-the-art stadium, 5-star hotel, state-of-the-art hospital, and as I told you earlier, all these roads will be 6-lane roads within the next 8 months. Take it from me. Because the AFCON will be held in October. The AFCON will be held in October. No, it will be held in sometimes July next year. But according to the instructions of His Excellency, the President of Zanzibar, that by December, everything should be ready just to welcome our guests. And not only these roads, but even the road which goes to the town from the roundabout there, about 8 or 9 kilometers from here, all of them will be 6-lane roads. And take it from the CEO of the Presidential Delivery Bureau. It's not from the streets. So I'm accountable. I'm accountable for what I'm saying because everything is in place, including the funding for that. Not only the funding, but even the identification of the contractors who will do that job. You must have time to go through around Fumba, please. Make sure that you go to the AFCON city there, which is not yet constructed. We have just started with the stadium, expected to finish by August this year, within the next 4 months. Okay, within the next 3 or 4 months. So through coordinated delivery, strategic partnership, and citizen-centered infrastructure, The Presidential Delivery Bureau remains committed to transforming Zanzibar urban landscape for the benefit of all citizens, and let me add, not only citizens, but all citizens, visitors, and residents, or there will be residents who like to come to Zanzibar. And for those who have not yet bought, and this is not a campaign, by the way, I don't have any commission. For those who have not yet purchased flats from Fumba, please make sure you do that within the next 1 month. Otherwise, the prices will go very high. And I don't think that I have anything else to add, because other than that, I would just like to thank you for listening to me. And being semi-politician, I'm not a politician, but working under the president's office, I must be somehow semi-politician. Whatever I've done, whatever we are doing is not ours. It is His Excellency, the President's vision, which is directing us on what to do. So we say that if there are flowers to pour on, au maua ya kumwagia, should go to His Excellency, who is my boss. I'm safeguarding my position, by the way. But seriously speaking, Curtis, please make sure that our students get time to visit
We will.
the PDB.
In fact,
It's a small office, but I'm sure you'll enjoy coming there. So,
have a field trip.
yeah. Thank you very much.